Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Live Positive Ministries. Today I want to discuss the arrogance of man, the arrogance of humanity, as it pertains to religion and as it pertains to the core tenets of our ministry. And that really is that we need to rebrand faith. We need to rethink religion. We need to kind of go back, rewrite the script, as it were. Because so much of religion and so much of what we discuss and we have discussed in the previous episodes is the fact that we're pretty full of ourselves, humanity. We think a little bit too highly of ourselves. And, for that reason, we come to absolute conclusions. It shows so much within our life. It's a good thing. We preach positivity and we do preach you to train yourself to have a positivity bias. And that's what we hope you do have, where when you look at a challenge in life, you look at anything in life, whether it's going to be your potential success in a relationship or your potential success in your career or just your potential positive outcomes within day-to-day life, is to have a personal success bias, in the sense that we do understand there's an awful lot in this world and there's dangers in this world, and there's, in some cases, high percentages of bad things happening. But you should focus on the positive as best you can, and assume a good outcome in life and manifest that into the world. Yes, there is a risk of ignoring reality when you do that, and the risks in life, but you should always be aware of those things. That kind of, arrogance is okay, right? You want to think positive. You want to assume the best. You want to assume things in that life. But then we also have a negativity bias towards other people, where we do tend to think very highly of ourselves and our own abilities to make the right decisions, make the right calls, do the right thing. We often assume others do not have that ability, nor do they have that interest. And so because we have this positivity bias, in the sense that what's in our mind, what affects us, the reality that you and I exist, because reality is different for everyone. Your reality and my reality will never be the same. I can say one thing to someone, and they can, depending on where they are in their state of mind, turn that into something completely opposite of what my intent was. Perhaps my tone wasn't correct. Perhaps they just weren't in the right mindset. Perhaps I wasn't in the right mindset to convey my thoughts and what have you. So because we always think our existence, our reality, what we experience in this moment is correct, there is that tendency to assume that anyone that sees something different from you is therefore incorrect. And it's not true. It could be different, but it doesn't necessarily mean to be incorrect. Perhaps those two different viewpoints could lead, in the end, those different diverging paths of consciousness and thought will still come to the same ending conclusion. But you don't know unless you discuss, right? So part of the arrogance of humanity, I say the arrogance of man because that's just a typical thing that you're going to do one way or the other. In reality, this isn't man meaning men, and I do feel you have to be careful about that these days. However, it's just humanity, okay? The arrogance of humanity and how that applies to religion, because we've discussed this, that when it comes to faith and religions, we do have a tendency within each faith to say, okay, this is the truth. This is the one true path. This is the one way to do things. And it's pretty arrogant, right? It's okay to say, like, for instance, my upbringing was in the Christian faith. My upbringing was within the Lutheran Church. So I'm going to have a Christianity bias. I'm going to have a bias towards the Lutheran faith because these are the things I know the best and I am the most comfortable with. You may have been brought up as in the Jewish faith, and as a Muslim. You could have been brought up as a Buddhist, as a Taoist, whatever that faith may be, atheist even, which in its way is its own belief system, or faith, I should say. No matter how you were brought up, as long as you admit that bias and say, okay, this is where I come from. So, while I may explain things in a way that comes from that point of view, please understand, I'm not saying that absolutely is the truth. It's just the truth as I currently see it. And I would love to hear your truth. And I'd love to share our truths and see if we can come to a mutual truth, a mutual understanding of some sort. And even that mutual understanding isn't necessarily truth. It's our truth. And now instead of it becomes your truth or my truth, it becomes our truth. And it's an ever developing, ever evolving situation. And that's, I think, an important part of life. It's an important part of life, and faith is a part of life, and our understanding of God is part of that. And I think if we, the believers and the faithful, and those that do believe in a common good, and those of us that do believe in a creator, if we take that approach and say, okay, listen, this is how I worship God. This is how I believe. These are the things I believe. But I accept whatever you believe, or I'm at least willing to listen to it. Whether I may agree or disagree, I'm not going to diminish what you feel. All I ask is you let me share with you how I feel, and I allow you in turn to share with me how you feel. We may, help each other evolve. We may stay where we're at and just further confirm what we already believe, but it's all part of the growth, right? And the arrogance that we have within religion is that we will take things and say that this is the one true way. And it kind of goes back to something I've said, I believe it was in episode 6, where and even a person that, let's again, I'm going to say the Christian faith. I have been a practitioner of the Christian faith all my life. That is what I was brought up in. But do I follow every part of Christianity? Do I follow every part of the Lutheran Church? No, there are things that contradict to me, things that don't seem right. Like, for instance, when you look in the Bible and there do seem to be condemnations of homosexuality. I was brought up in a time where there was a time in my life when I was younger that I viewed homosexuality in a vulgar way. And I have evolved over the years as I got to know people who were gay, as I, saw and understood certain things about homosexuality. I realized, and as I evolved my faith, I realized God created these individuals, and to tell these individuals that they are dirty, bad, condemned to hell, whatever it may be, how are they ever going to accept that faith? Why would you accept a faith that tells you you're these horrible things? Why would you accept a God into your life that condemns you? I believe that God loves and created everybody, and therefore God loves everyone, including homosexuals. And, it's okay to be gay and believe and love God. You believe and love in the God that you understand and the God that you accept. But because we have these certain beliefs within each faith, there are always going to be people, because of the arrogance of humanity, that are going to, when they create their own version of that faith, which inevitably happens, are going to go out and commit religious malpractice. They are going to do things that are very counter to our Creator. They're going to do things that are very counter to the mission that a person of faith, I feel, should be putting out there, and that is showing love, showing acceptance, showing understanding, showing a willingness to listen and learn and hopefully teach at the same time. Let's take again Islam. I've mentioned before, I was reading, the first time I really read anything into the Islamic faith, I decided to try to understand it better, I bought the book Islam for Dummies. And it's a great book. It really kind of puts things in the basics of the faith out there. And so many people in the world today, because of 9/11 and because of the things that happened after 9/11, when you say Muslim or you say Islam, or you speak of the Quran, you speak of Muhammad, they are going to think about radicals. They are going to think of murder. They are going to think of beheadings. They're going to think of some of the most gruesome, disgusting things done in the name of God. And a faith, which I can assure you, if you take the time to look into it, you will see is one of the most accepting, loving, very beautiful belief system, much of which, when I read into Islam for Dummies, there were times I was thinking, my goodness, this might be it for me. This might be, there's so much here I accept, and there's so much there I do accept to this day. So many concepts. The popular image of Muslims and Islam, and that faith has been hijacked by extremists. And those extremists who claim to do things in the name of Allah and claim to do things to the glory of God are destroying and killing the very God they claim to love and they claim to do things for. And that's arrogance. That say you know so well that you know that God needs you to go fight his battles. Don't take me wrong. That doesn't mean we sit silent and do nothing when we see wrong. No, we have to address things when they are done wrong. But killing in the name of God, judging others in the name of God, to me, and within this ministry, is taught that that's the height of arrogance. Because what makes you think that God needs you to do these things? Okay, God is our creator. We live but by the grace of God. The existence that we have is but by the grace of God. And while we do have free will, which is what leads to much of this arrogance and this extremism, it doesn't mean that that's God doing this. Okay, so when somebody goes out and cuts off an infidel's head and says, well, this is in the name of God. No, this is in the name of evil. This is in the name of your arrogance that thinks that you know so well your creator and the will of your creator that you believe your creator wants you to brutally murder one of his children. And that's wrong. That is horrific. That is not the way to do things. It is God's place to judge. You certainly can and should, as I am now, tell people your faith and your belief how you see it. You should attempt to guide people from dark paths that you may see that's obviously helping in their life, or at least share with them another path and say, listen, here's the path you are currently down. And to me, that looks pretty dangerous and dark in that direction. Here's another path. And let me show you how safe and light it is and how wonderful it might be for you. I invite you to join me on this particular path. If you don't like it, you can always go back to the other path. We can always find another way down there. And perhaps by taking a slow journey on my path for a while, when you go to connect back to the original path, you may cut over the dark, scary parts of it, and you may still end up in a very good place. That's the way we need to approach faith. Okay, that's the way we need to approach others. We can't be blind to human nature. And when you come and you use your faith as a cudgel to beat people over the head, when you come to anybody, especially in the modern world, and say, you must believe what I say, you must do what I say to do, this is the one way, this is the only way, the majority of people are going to push back, or at best just ignore you, placate you, and then move on and say, what a weirdo. And it is this fact that many who are against religion, they use this as weapons. We are literally putting the bullets into their guns so that they can harm us and harm our God. We're giving them all the ammunition that they need. They're just taking what we give them and they're turning it around. It's much like going into an enemy country and dropping a whole bunch of our top weaponry in there and saying, here, but don't hurt us with it. Of course they're going to. And that's what we have to get beyond. Okay, and anytime you express an opinion, as I am, or a viewpoint or a philosophy of anything, you do risk the coming across as preaching, which is what we're doing, but telling someone what they must do. And that's why it's so important that you always allow people, and you make it very abundantly clear, I respect whatever opinion you have. I respect wherever you're coming from. I just want to have a conversation about this. I would love to hear how you feel. I would love to tell you how I feel. But understand, I'm not telling you I'm right or you're wrong. I'm just saying this is how I see it. And let's discuss it. Let's take this journey. Let's try to find a way. Because let's face it, look at the world today. We do tend to, and I don't like to focus on the negative, but there's some scary things going on. There's a lot of radicalism that's happening on all sides. The world's become very radicalized. There's a divide that's always been there in humanity, but that divide has become a chasm, which has become a canyon, which has become, a Grand Canyon, which is now becoming universes apart. It's becoming so far apart. We are breaking up so much from one another. We are viewing intelligent, rational conversation about opposing views as a horrible thing. And too often you see people weaponizing faith in very, very, you should never weaponize faith to begin with, but doing it in the most egregious and horrible ways. And then you get that on video, and then someone shares that video, and then next thing you know, everybody goes, oh, look, here's one of those crazy Christians or those crazy religious people, and look how hypocritical they are. They preach one thing, and look how they're treating somebody. That's not an example of a real person of faith. That is someone showing a malpractice of faith. That is someone weaponizing faith. That is a person that has deep personal flaws that haven't been addressed and need to be addressed, and needs to be worked on. And that's not to say we all have to be perfect. We cannot. Do not strive for perfection. Just strive to be better. Strive to be better. When you make mistakes, try to strive to look at yourself, admit that mistake, have the courage and the strength to say, I was wrong, and then do your best to correct that in the future and perhaps mitigate any damage that might have happened from your actions. It takes real strength to admit when you're wrong. In those moments when the last thing you want to do is admit you were wrong, those are the moments you should actually be admitting you were wrong, because deep down you probably were. When every fiber of your being does not want to accept responsibility for your actions, accept those responsibilities. When someone is coming at you and being rude and berating you or being aggressive towards you, do your absolute best to not return that energy. Do your absolute best to try to diffuse and walk away, and perhaps maybe come to an understanding with someone who may just be having a bad moment. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've seen situations that were escalating. And in a different life, I used to do a lot of retail management, and you would deal with very upset retail customers. And it's very easy to take what that person was saying to you personally, because oftentimes they would get very upset about something that was not worth that level of aggression and being upset. But the worst thing you can do is feed into it. You find yourselves, if you kill them with kindness, as they say, you listen to what they're saying, you figure out what it is that's really upsetting them, and as they say, don't tell them what you cannot do for them. Tell them what you can do for them. And when you meet their aggression with patience and kindness, I cannot tell you how often I would have people tell me, I am so sorry for my behavior. Thank you so much for, not getting angry with me, hearing what I had to say, and they apologize and they thank me. We have to allow people to be human. We have to, and that includes ourselves. Sometimes, myself included, you are not going to handle a situation correctly. I'm a large man. I'm 6'4", 270 pounds. I've played football, hockey, baseball, basketball. I trained in the martial arts. I fought with full contact competitions in martial arts. I've always had a very high testosterone, high aggression level when I was younger. Fortunately, a lot of that's back down. I'm 52 years old now and a grandfather, but it's still there sometimes. That competitive spirit, that aggression, is there. Especially when I see somebody clearly doing wrong to someone who's weaker, or clearly doing something they should not be doing. My first is to attack. That's my first instinct internally. I want to go and aggressively stop somebody from doing the things that they are currently doing to a weaker person. But I do have to understand that that's not always the best, situation. And with age, you understand there are different ways to approach things. So, yes, there are days I don't handle things correctly. But recognize those moments, accept those moments, own those moments when you've made a mistake. Not to kind of jump on a bandwagon or to pile on someone that's already clearly having issues, but a good example of that was the situation with Will Smith at the Oscars and what he did with Chris Rock. It's very easy to pile on to Will Smith when you don't, or at the time especially, didn't know all the personal things that might be going on there. But a lot of what happened there did happen because of the worship of celebrity, the enabling of such behavior by people who are viewed as a certain status, to where because he is wealthy, he is famous, he is influential, there was a part of him that felt entitled to act that way, where perhaps an average person like yourself or myself would not have on such a stage stepped up and done such a thing. But the mistake was made for whatever reason it was. And the one thing that Mr. Smith, the opportunity he missed, is to properly apologize. The apology he made, and granted, it was shortly thereafter the moment of what he did, but he really should have said, listen, there is no excuse for what I did. And Chris, I apologize. I hope we can talk about this later, but I was wrong. There is no good reason to do what I did. And I'm sorry to everyone for my behavior. That's not what he did. He did an excuse apology, where the apology was an excuse within there, never really addressed the person that he had actually harmed in that situation. So is it unforgivable for someone to make a mistake? Unfortunately, in society, oftentimes it can be, when it becomes too costly, or that your mistake costs others way too much, whether it be emotional capital or financial, or whatever it may be. You might be unforgiven and canceled. And I do think we have to forgive when forgiveness is asked for and when it's sincere. So be the better person. If you make a mistake and you go up there and you act out, you lash out, truly be apologetic for it and mean that apology. One of the things my grandfather used to always say to me was that when I would apologize for something, if it was the first time I would do it, he would accept that apology. But then if I did it again, he'd say, don't tell me that. No, you're not sorry, because if you were sorry, you wouldn't continue to do the same thing. You're just sorry you were caught. You're just sorry you're currently in trouble. You're not sorry for your actions because you continue to repeat the very actions you apologized for. And that's true. Be your toughest critic. Before you start judging others and you start telling others that, a judgment upon their actions, and deciding you want to punish others who are not yours to punish, such as your children, that's your job as a parent, let's say. Judge yourself. Look in the mirror and say, okay, what have I done wrong in this situation? Even if you have a situation where, let's say, you're positive after deep thought that you were 80% right and 20% wrong. Well, instead of fixating on the 80% right that you were and letting that seethe and make you upset, focus on the 20% that you were wrong and say, okay, if I fix this here, because this is what I can control. This is me. This is my error, my mistake. This is what I can control. You might find that the other person might fix 40 of the 80% that they were wrong. And it's still not perfect, but instead of having this big difference, you now 60% agree. You fixed your 20, they fixed 40 of the 80. Now you just disagree on 40%, but you agree on 60%. That's an improvement. And when you make those little improvements and you find these little areas where you can, work with one another and compromise, you'll find that life goes a lot easier. Things go a lot smoother. Everything's a whole lot better. So I think it's time that the faithful understand that God does not need us to strike someone down on his behalf. God does not need us to threaten people with consequences from him for their actions. God does not need us to judge others. That's not what God needs from us. God can handle those things himself, herself, however you want to view that. What God needs us to do is to do our best to be an example to others of how we should live our lives. And by making a mistake, you can still be an example. And that is by owning up to that mistake after it's been made, making a sincere apology for that mistake, and doing your best to be better moving forward, and to use your losses, your mistakes, to grow and to show others and use that as a learning experience for them as well. In sports, we always say you learn much more from your losses than you do from your wins. And you can be winning, doing things all the time. Boy, that feels good and things are great. And then you lose. How do you handle that? And losing can be making a mistake. Not just losing in life, but just you did something. And how do you learn from that? You sit back, you reflect, you realize what you've done wrong, what you could have and should have done differently. And then you share that experience with others. Don't be afraid. It's very hard to admit our weaknesses, but that's strength. It's very hard to admit our mistakes, but that is true strength. So, with that, this is going to be it for our episode today. I apologize if I understand I'm not the most skilled at trying to do a podcast. It's strange for me, or a video like this on YouTube. Much more of an in-person individual. But I'm doing my best, and I hope you get the message here. So I would love to hear from you. Our email is livepositiveministries@gmail.com. I would love to get feedback, things you might want to discuss, things you'd like to hear my opinion on, ideas that you have about faith and your belief system and how it may differ or be the same as mine. I know a lot of what I'm saying is the idea of reinventing faith isn't something new. There are plenty of others out there as well, but I think we need to get together on this, and this is something we, the faithful, need to do, and stop giving the weaponry needed for others to destroy faith, to destroy religion, religious rights, because it's coming. It really is. We're heading in that direction, and it's really our fault more than anything else. Kill them with kindness. Kill them with love. Show people a better path. Be the example as best that you can. And I think we'll find improvements. So again, livepositiveministries@gmail.com. I would love any help I can be given. I would love any feedback that you can give. Please like, share, and subscribe. I have had some listeners on some of these, and please subscribe. It's the only way that if you think anything I am saying is of value, share it. And if there's anything you think I could do better, constructive criticism is something I love. If there's something I'm doing, a way I'm telling something that you're finding boring or droning, if there's a habit that I have that's annoying when I'm trying to discuss things, I'm open to that. I want to improve. I want to get better as I go and keep this interesting. And I'm also going to try to keep a lot of these down to maybe 30 minutes. But again, this is Pastor Jay with Live Positive Ministries. I thank you all so much who listen to this and interact. And no matter which path you take to God, please just pick a path and take that first step. God bless. Be safe, and I look forward to talking to you more in the next one.